normally when I do shows like this, I interview with the newspapers or the radio stations or whatever, and they always ask me the same question. They go, well, Bill, is your family funny? I always say, no. No, my family's crazy, and that makes me funny. And the Engvall clan has had crazy covered for a number of decades. My grandparents, when they were alive, God bless their hearts, my grandmother was crazy as a loon. Most wonderful woman you ever meet in your life, but she just loved to talk. She talked to y'all, that mic stand, the stool, these walls. And they all live in one little town in Texas, a little town called Georgetown, Texas. And my parents lived there, my sisters lived there, and my grandparents lived there when they were alive. And Gail, my wife, and I, we both went to college in that little town. So when I was at college, I'd go over to Grandma and Grandpa's house because it was a free, good meal. And it's the one thing I learned in college. And I'd go over there and it'd be the same scenario every day. There'd be my granddad sitting in his favorite chair with the newspaper up. My grandmother would just be walking through the house talking. And I'd egg it on. I said, well, how you doing today, Grandma? She goes, well, Billy, I'm doing all right, I guess. They're not shoveling dirt on top of me. I guess that's a good day. I said, what'd you do today? She goes, well, Bill, I went to the beauty shop today. I said, oh, really? She goes, oh, yes. And I saw Betsy there. And Betsy was getting herself a bouffant hairdo. Now, Bill, I don't know why she'd get a bouffant hairdo because she's got a fat face. Well, yeah, you'd think a woman with a fat face would want that hair hanging all down in front of her face. But no, she pulls it all on top of her head. So now she's got a big fat bun of hair with those big fat cheeks. I think she's lost her mind. Oh, and did I tell you this? They bought a new car. She wanted a Chevy, but they talked her into a Ford. She wanted a black Chevy, but the dealerman said, oh man, black shows up dirt too much. You need a brown car. So now instead of a pretty black Chevy, she's got an ugly brown Ford with that fat-faced bouffant hairdo. I think she's lost her mind. And my granddad would just go, mm-hmm. I'll tell you a story about them. When they were getting ready to celebrate their 50th wedding anniversary, my grandmother said to my granddad, she said, Ray, I want you to go to Macy's and get yourself a suit because it's our big anniversary and I want you dressed up. And my granddad's like, I ain't wearing no damn suit. I never wore one, ain't gonna wear one now. Because you got to know who my granddad was. It was boots, overalls, and no shirt. All right, yeah. And that was church. Yeah. But, Grandma ruled the house, so she got to go get a suit, and they had their anniversary. Well, everything was great. Well, unfortunately, about 9 months later, Granddaddy passed away. And we were sitting at the funeral home, me and my grandmother, and the funeral director said to my grandmother, she said, ma'am, what would you like Ray buried in? And my grandmother looked at me and said, well, we bought him that suit. I guess we'll just bury him in that. And I remember thinking, this poor man can't catch a break dead. So we buried Granddaddy, and after the funeral, I was having coffee with my grandmother, and I said, now, Grandma, I said, listen to me. I said, people are going to start calling the house now, and they're going to ask for Granddaddy, but they don't really want him. I said, they just want to make sure he's gone, and they're going to try to sell you some kind of scam to get in your stocks or your savings. I said, so do me a favor. When they call, you just tell them that Granddaddy's in the garden, or he's gone into town, or he'll be back later, and they can call back and talk to him then. And I said, trust me, they won't call back. Well, I went on home. Well, about a year later, I was back in town visiting my parents. I stopped by to see Grandma. And we were sitting there having coffee, and she said, well, honey, you were right. I said, about what? She said, those folks called all the time. I said, I told you they would. She said, this one fella, he called once a week for 6 weeks. I said, well, what did he want? And she goes, well, that's what I wanted to know. She said, so the next time he called, I said, young man, you have called this house once a week for 6 weeks. Can I ask what this is about? And he said, oh, yes, ma'am. He said, I'm sorry. He said, I'm from Macy's, and I was just calling to see how Ray's enjoying his suit. I started laughing, and I said, what did you say, Grandma? And she goes, well, I didn't want to lie to him because the Lord don't like liars. So I just said, well, young man, we can't get it off him. And she wasn't lying.